Hello, I'm Don Frazier, and we're going to continue this interesting tale of the American Civil War in Louisiana and Texas. This time it's all going to be about Louisiana and really about New Orleans. But first, let's talk about Confederate fortunes after secession. Well, it's been a year or thereabout, and the Confederate nation has started to coalesce, but on the battlefield, it's not going so well. There's a huge Union army that has now moved into the peninsula of Virginia and is crowding in on the Confederate capital at Richmond. That doesn't look too promising. If you're a Confederate, out west, things look even worse. A Union army has penetrated the Tennessee River line, and in fact, Union troops have upended two Confederate fortifications, Forts Henry and Fort Donelson, and captured Nashville. Now these rivers, the Cumberland and the Tennessee, will provide arteries, ways of accessing the heartland of the Confederacy. The Mississippi River is being slowly conquered by Union forces coming down from the Ohio and Cairo, Illinois. So now Union forces are on the advance, Confederate forces are in retreat. It's reaching a crisis point. Out west of the Appalachian Mountains, there's General Albert Sidney Johnston, who is charged with somehow reversing these fortunes. So he decides to take a big gamble. He's going to strip all Confederate troops from all their far-flung places where they're watching and waiting against a Union invasion, concentrate all these troops into one grand Confederate army, and pounce upon one part of the Union army moving south from Kentucky and through Tennessee. See, there's two Union armies that are about to gather together into one massive Union army. So Sidney Johnston figures that if he can just bite up one of these and chew it up and spit it out, then he can go and attack the other one as well. It's all about bringing about the decisive battle. Well, the decisive battle never occurs, but a very bloody one does. April 6th and 7th of 1862 is the Battle of Shiloh. What started out looking pretty promising for the Confederates, looked like the gamble might pay off, in fact, falls apart. Sidney Johnston is killed, the Confederate army is defeated, falls back to its stronghold at Corinth, and there, slowly but surely, gets sick and starts to dissipate until finally they have to withdraw from Corinth even. Things are looking awful. Well, simultaneous to all this, there's a lightning bolt from the Gulf of Mexico. Admiral David G. Farragut actually takes the West Gulf blockading squadron, or a big element of it, heads up the Mississippi River, bypasses two Confederate fortifications, Fort Jackson, Fort St. Philip, and all of a sudden on April 25th, 1862, the residents of New Orleans look up and there are Union warships with their cannons pointing towards the city out in the Mississippi River. So now New Orleans is literally under the guns of the Federal fleet. Well, 2 days later, the two fortifications that have been bypassed by the U.S. Navy, those garrisons mutiny. And they just leave the forts, throw the keys over the fence and say, "Your fort now." So the Union infantry, the land forces that had come along with Farragut's expedition, occupy those two forts, then come upriver, and on May 1st, they actually marched through the streets of New Orleans, led by General Benjamin Butler. Well, Butler is a pre-war Democrat, but he has no patience with secessionists. He says, you know what, we're going to make these people pay for doing something stupid. May 2nd, he calls in the mayor of New Orleans and says, guess what? You're not really mayor anymore. I am. You are now under federal occupation and military control. And you're going to play it my way, or bad things will happen. When there are people that try to resist this new regime, some of them end up being hanged as an example. So clearly the Federals are here to stay. The one thing that they need to do next is figure out if they can snuff out any Confederate resistance anywhere in the region. So they decide to start looking upriver, and maybe they can connect the forces that are in the lower Mississippi with the Union forces that are coming down from the upper Mississippi. Meanwhile, one single regiment of Indiana troops, the 21st Indiana, gets on train cars over in Algiers, which is across the river from New Orleans, and takes the Opelousas and New Orleans Railroad all the way to Thibodaux, where they get off the train and start marching up through the Lafourche country. Those very magnificent sugar plantations that line Bayou Lafourche. These include two plantations of some very well-known Confederates. General Leonidas Polk, which has his plantation on the west bank of the Lafourche near Thibodaux, and Braxton Bragg's plantation on the east bank of the Lafourche near Thibodaux. Now all of a sudden, Confederate officials, Confederate generals, Confederate leaders are feeling the tramp of Yankee boots on their front porches. Richard Taylor, a very ardent secessionist during the crisis of the previous year, and a general under Thomas Jonathan Jackson, Stonewall Jackson in Virginia, his plantation is also occupied by federal forces and actually pretty aggressively looted. So the Yankees have come, and they are deciding to put a very hard hand of war onto southern Louisiana.